Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Sam,
I'm Jack.
and we are Sam and Jack Talk.
We did
Yay.
a weird hit thing there.
Yeah.
Don't know how I feel about that.
Don't know about that either.
Yeah.
So, new video this week. We were going to talk, have a chat this week, do something interesting about the French presidential
Ooh la la.
election first round, which is on Sunday, very important. But then there was some news yesterday. There was some news that there is going to be a snap general election on the 8th of June. It's just been confirmed by a vote in Parliament today. So we thought we'd just share with you our initial reactions to that when the news came out yesterday, and also our expectations and our predictions
Mystic
for the
Meg style
outcome of the election. Yes, we are quite some Mystic Megs. I think Jack, you're going to go first with our initial reaction yesterday.
I mean, it's not the most groundbreaking initial reaction. It's surprise. When Sam told me at about 10:30 yesterday, it was like, Theresa May's making an announcement. General election ? And then we both, I think, eventually sort of came together and were like, no, never going to happen. That won't be it.
No.
In the next 15-20 minutes, we'd done like a complete 180 and had decided it was definitely happening. I think we went back and forth a bit. Is she dying? No. Then we sort of landed on 11 o'clock, and everybody found out, yes, it will be a general election. And yeah, it was surprising, but at the same time, once we sort of thought through the reasons behind it, less surprising on reflection, in the sense that the polls, the sort of political position Theresa May's in makes a general election look quite
I'm just grinning because I was just imagining lots of Polish people helping Theresa May.
Yes.
Anytime someone says the word Poles, I think of Poland. I don't have any particular affection to Poland, but I do. Now you all know that whenever you say the word Poles, that's what I think of.
There you go. But yeah, there are a number of reasons. We have some of them set out in front of us. But yeah.
Do you want to share what you think is maybe the most salient reason?
Politics. This is Yvette Cooper in Parliament today in the House of Commons was making a sort of highlighted all these different reasons that Theresa May can't rely on in sort of confirming that there's not confirming in choosing to have an election in June. Things like so she has a better mandate in Parliament. Well, that doesn't really make sense because Parliament's already voted for Article 50, the House of Lords has voted for Article 50. The only real reason can be politics, and it's quite clear that Theresa May would quite like to take advantage of the polls as they are, which have Labour in quite an atrocious position. So yeah, I think that is probably the main reason why you would have a general election just now if you were Theresa May.
Yes, I think I completely agree with that. I think I was very surprised. Various people had predicted that there might be a snap general election, and I generally thought that was pretty unlikely. I thought people were just perhaps saying that.
Convincing on it, the reasons you were coming up with about.
I'll get back in a moment to the reasons that I was quite convinced there wouldn't be a general election. But my initial reaction to the announcement of a general election was that it was a very politically savvy move on behalf of Theresa May. It is both very smart of her to do that right now when the Tories have a close to 20-point lead in a number of polls. I don't think it's a coincidence this announcement came just a couple of days after two polls gave the Tories a 20-point lead. And it's also savvy because my initial thought was that it made Theresa May look like she wanted to hear the voice of the people on Brexit, essentially, and wanted an endorsement of the view that she is taking on Brexit and the hard Brexit she wants to bring to the country, so that when people in opposition and people in the country say that that's not what people voted for in the referendum in 2016, she can turn around to them and say, no, maybe they didn't, but then they voted for it in the general election in 2017, because obviously she expects to win, and she expects that to give her a mandate. And I think it was only after a while, kind of later in the day yesterday, that in reaction to seeing a number of other people's comments about this, that it did occur to me that Theresa May calling this election appeared to completely undermine something which I think everyone really thought was one of her hallmarks, and which was the reason I thought she wouldn't call a general election, which is that I thought she was someone who genuinely just cared about getting the job done, and was very committed to this idea that government is simply about providing a kind of stable hand at the tiller. It's not about changing the country, it's not about introducing major reforms, it's not about making the country a better place for people to live, it's just about governing it. And I mean, the Conservative Party freely admits that that is simply their aim, just to govern the country. Not to do anything to it to make it better, just to be in charge of it. And I thought Theresa May was committed to that idea in a very kind of managerial way. So in the sense that she was happy to take on this mandate from the 2015 general election, yes, and would be very technocratic, and would then take up the mantle of implementing Brexit and implementing a number of other policies that she'd wanted. And she has, to some degree, thrown that idea out the window by calling this general election.
Turns out she's as evil as the rest of them.
That could come back to bite her. That could come back to bite her if there was an effective major opposition party in this country, which there isn't. You mentioned Yvette Cooper just now. I think if Yvette Cooper was the leader of the opposition, I think Theresa May could potentially be in a lot more trouble.
I think if a wet paper bag were leader of the opposition, Theresa May could be in a lot more trouble.
That is possibly true.
Yes.
That is possibly true. I think therefore, on reflection a second time, I think it probably is a smart move for Theresa May.
Yeah.
And I think that I do kind of understand why she made that move, and it probably is the smart thing for her to do politically as a political operator. And that leads quite nicely into the second thing we want to talk about, which is our kind of predictions for the election. The reason I think it's a smart thing for her to do politically is that I think the Conservatives will win this election, and I think they will do so handsomely. I think they will probably increase their majority. And the reason for that is simply based on current polling. Polling has been wrong in the past. It's usually been wrong in favour of the Conservative Party and against the Labour Party. Of course, the polls can change over the course of the campaign, over the coming 6-7 weeks, but they could change in Labour's favour. They could also change against Labour, of course, and the victory the Tories have in this upcoming election may be much, much greater than what the current polls are predicting.
Yeah.
Things could obviously go in both elections, but what I just did before we started recording.
Yeah.
What's making
No,
you laugh? You think about polls as well?
No, it was just because I feel like you described all the things that could happen in an election.
Yeah, well,
Somebody could win. They also
just,
might not win.
It's kind of just an obvious thing to say. Well,
Yeah.
Labour might pull back and then, get
True.
closer. Yeah, they could. Or they could get worse.
High hopes and expectations.
I wouldn't make a prediction on that front. So I would make, I suppose not a prediction, but I suppose what I would make is an assessment of where things stand at the moment. So what I did just before we started recording this video is I looked at the most recent poll, and really you should average polls, but I just took one recent poll, an ICM poll, which has a Conservative lead of 21 points off the top of my head. So it has the poll has the Tories on 46%, Labour on 25%, the Lib Dems on 11%, and UKIP on 8%. And I just kind of totted up the sums for what that would mean with a swing. That's a swing of 7% compared to the election in 2015. And I just totted up what that would mean for the seat distribution. Essentially what that means is that the Conservatives, I have got this written down on a piece of paper now, forgive me. The Conservatives would win around about 390 seats. That's up about 60 from where they are now. And then Labour would be down about kind of 60 to 70 seats, so they'd be on about kind of 170 or so, maybe a little more. I think the SNP would stay roughly where they are. They might lose a few seats to the Conservatives, and then the Lib Dems will gain a number of seats probably as well. I think a lot of people at the moment are predicting that they might gain quite a lot of seats, the thing to remember that is there will be a swing to the Conservatives in seats where the Conservatives are facing the Liberal Democrats as well, and the Liberal Democrats will probably capture a number of seats back from the Conservatives, but I just took a rough estimate of that and thought they might get about 10 to 15. So they might be on 20 or 25 seats.
That's what I was going to ask. Do you see them breaking 20?
I'd say 20 is a decent guess for the Lib Dems. We were talking about this before, that they might even struggle to hold on to somewhere like Richmond Park at a general election, because of the sheer kind of volume of kind of committed Tory voters who will come out and support the government and come out in support of Theresa May. Again, I might be wrong on that. The Lib Dems might get 30 seats, they might even get more than that.
They could win the election.
But that's not particularly going to change the outcome of the election. So this isn't really a prediction, this is just an assessment of where things stand now. Tories on about 390 or so, Labour on about 170, Lib Dems on about 20 or so, 25. And that gives a Conservative majority of about 120 to 130 seats, which is a very comfortable and pretty large majority, really. That would be the largest majority since the Blair landslides, and about as large as Thatcher had. So that's, I think, roughly where we stand and what I would predict.
And then I suppose the other thing we should touch on is what that seat arrangement might actually mean, and more generally what politics might look like, not just in the coming 8 weeks, 10 weeks,
7 weeks.
7 weeks.
7 weeks tomorrow, I think.
But then thereafter as well, obviously, Theresa May will come up with a manifesto at some point that will set out, I'm sure, a raft of truly horrid policies for anyone with an average or below average income. Possibly people of an above average income as well. I think we touched on it yesterday. Theresa May really doesn't like the European Court of Human Rights and the European Convention of Human Rights. Could we see her have something in her manifesto that pulls away from that? We could see in her sort of announcement of the election yesterday, she touched on unelected lords, which I saw some people sort of speculating this could mean some form of lords reform. I don't particularly see her doing that. But yeah, we could see a sort of hard Brexit manifesto from the Tories.
Yes.
You would hope, turning to Labour, that would mean Labour would come up with something to oppose that. I'm not sure they will. I imagine they'll have lots of I think they'll have lots of policies on lots of social policy, lots of imagine housing will be mentioned lots in a Labour manifesto, the NHS. What I can't tell you right now is what they'll actually do about that, because it changes every now and again, and even when it does change, it's no clearer than it was before. But I could be gloriously surprised. Thinking about the other parties, the Lib Dems, I think it'll be interesting to see if the Lib Dems, what they do with Brexit and a second referendum, if they want that in their manifesto. I don't know if that'll come out. In any event, I don't think it'll happen after the general election. And the SNP, I think this will be really interesting to see, because the question will be what they do about the independence referendum, second independence referendum in their manifesto. Surely they have to put it in as a 2019 or 2018 even second independence referendum, and that will be a divisive issue in those constituencies that are a bit hairy for the SNP, and that they could lose to the Tories. Like down in the borders, people don't want another referendum. These are all seats that are vulnerable to the Tories, and they could drop off the SNP's sort of mass hall of Scotland. But,
yes.
Yeah.
Indeed. Well, we'll be talking about all of that more another time, I'm sure. We'll certainly be doing another video on this election. Probably also one looking at what parties both of us might be voting for. We haven't talked about that, have we? You may have noticed. That's going to be how should I put it? To keep you on tenterhooks. So to find out about that, to see our future videos, which we'll probably do one on. We may do one on France still, on the French presidential elections. We'll probably do one on
Progressive
Russia,
Alliance
Russia
type
at some
stuff,
point.
maybe.
Progressive Alliance, UK elections. We'll be coming back to all of it. So for that and more, subscribe, share, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.